Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista, Series 6, The Cow in the Room. Dale, it's been an interesting week because I normally see like big kind of political journalists standing there on College Green or MPs being incessantly interviewed. And there was you this week,
Huh.
standing out from the crowd with budget response.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a
And
bit
a,
of
and a bloke playing loads of loud music down there as well.
Steve, my mate Steve.
Oh, was it Steve doing the music?
Yeah,
I
Brexit
thought
man.
I assumed it would be.
He's
Yeah,
he's he's everywhere. It was quite crazy. We got there and there was a march going right through the middle of College Green. It must have been allowed about 10, 15 people with whistles and drums and stuff
yeah.
like that. I think all of them were just out to make as much noise and disruption as possible, which in a way I can understand, but in a way I can't. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty hectic and fun there on College Green talking about the budget and bumped into our mate Richard Tice, actually.
Did you? Did
Yeah.
you? Was there a handshake? Was there a?
Yeah. Well, like I walked over because I thought we looked at each other. We'd seen each other from a distance, and I thought, oh, come on, there's no point being silly. And I don't think I've met him. And I walked over and just said, "Hey, I just want to say hello." He put his hand out. We shook hands, and then then I shook the hand of some quite thuggy looking bloke stood next to him. Must have been his minder, I think. I don't know. But if he's not, I apologize for any offense. But he was a big chap, and then a photographer, I think it was Press Association, said, "Can we have a picture?" And Ticey looks at me and says, what do you think?" I'm like, "Yeah." So we did it arms round, selfie style.
Nice.
And I had a picture. And I'm like, it's not personal because it's not, I'm suing him for what he said about Hamas and me and that kind of stuff. But it's not personal. He could back out any time. That'll all be fine.
Yeah.
And
You'll be
all that
down the
was
Wimpy soon, you and Ticey.
the wimpy. Is that what they have in Clacton or something?
I think so. Yeah, Skegness.
And then in stark contrast, I just bumped into Carla Denyer, co-leader of the Green Party.
Yeah. Well, does she got the hump with you still?
Yeah, big time. I went to say hello, and I got a kind of grudging hello, and then kind of turned the back, and
Wow.
I said to my people, it's like the frost just came early this year. I can't
So
believe that.
what's the reason why?
I don't know.
What's
I don't know, but the last time we met was at the Massive Attack gig on the Downs on a panel, and I mentioned the kind of awkward fact for the Green Party that although they talk big about green policies and Labour not being green enough, one of the first things they did was to oppose pylons in Norfolk that are essential for some renewable energy projects. So I just pointed that out, and then there was a discussion that followed, and it looked a bit like unpleasant and an awkward
yeah.
truth, I would say. And maybe she's holding that against me. Honestly, I don't know. I think it's really silly because I'm a fan of green policies, and I've got friends in the Green Party, and I'm arguing for green stuff, and all this green on green nonsense just kind of happens, doesn't it? We
Yeah.
have difference of opinion, we move on, but I don't take it personal.
So you see, I think it's just simple. I think it's a kind of I don't say this in an insulting way. I think it's just a basic sort of envy, a political envy in a way that everything the Green Party were sort of wanting to do, the most kind of pressing stuff, it is now being done, and it sort of does a little bit it doesn't make them redundant. We're a democracy, but it does. It sort of shoots their fox a little bit, and of course you're an integral part of it because they thought Dale Vince, he's like the godfather of our thinking, and then you kind of leg it to the Labour Party. That's how they see it, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, and of course I explained that so many times in our political system. Only one of two parties can win, and Labour were green and were going to adopt big green policies, and it made sense to get behind them and make sure they won. Because there'd be nothing worse than another Tory government after 14 years of one disaster after another. And I mean, I've had conversations with Greens as well, Green MP candidates and that kind of stuff ahead of the last election, and there is a resentment. The frequent comment is, "But Labour have taken our policies," to which I laugh just like that, and I say, "But you should be pleased."
Exactly like that.
Exactly like that. You should be pleased. I mean, how else are you going to get your policies enacted?
Yeah.
We haven't got 100 years for you to win to be in government through this electoral system, but that's the way to win. Get Labour to adopt green policies wherever they come from, and who cares? To be proprietorial about those is a mistake.
Let's talk about the budget, Dale. That was a big reason you were there on College Green, to talk to people like me and others about what you thought. Did it tick all the boxes? Did it do what you wanted it to do in terms of your specific area of interest, i.e., the environment.
Well, you know what? I was really a bit excited the night before. I thought, "Ooh, it's budget day." Actually, what's coming. I thought we'd see some taxes, some wealth taxes, and that kind of stuff. We might see capital gains tax go up to equalize it with income tax. I thought because that seemed to be a massive opportunity for a heap of cash, and a tax that only affects, I don't know, like 1% of people or something. But we didn't get that. I mean, capital gains tax went up a little bit, maybe 4%. I was disappointed by that. No wealth tax, disappointed by that. Um, there was a fuel duty freeze. I understand that there is a cost of living crisis. Even as an environmentalist, I was disappointed. But the big thing that was done by Rachel Reeves was a structural change. And it was basically to say to the governor of the Bank of England, you now have to have climate change on an equal footing with growth when you make your plans to set interest rates and do all the other things that the Bank of England does. And that is a really big deal. There were actually, funnily enough, Green MPs, not to hark on, saying that actually in the whole budget speech, the word climate wasn't there once and that kind of stuff. This is what I was told by interviewers and stuff like that. And I don't know about that. But the fact that climate change has been put on the agenda of the Bank of England on an equal footing with growth, I think that's incredible.
Was that the biggest for you? I mean, you had a few other ideas, didn't you, about what you wanted, and you just referred to some of them there. But did that last one really kind of hit the bullseye?
I thought that was a big one. I would have rather seen some equalization, more fairness in the tax regime, because we still tax money made with a pair of hands at a higher rate than money made with money. Capital gains tax could have gone up by a lot more, and it would have raised a shed load of money. I mean, Rachel Reeves appears to have pulled a rabbit out of the hat. She raised £40 billion of essential money to plug holes and invest in infrastructure, and did it at the same time as making 90% of people in our country better off. I don't know how she did that. But I think she could have gone further, but there's no point banging on about that. You never got what everything you want from life or from an election, from a budget, whatever. I mean, I think it was a good budget, and now we can move on.
Here's something you just kind of touched on. I woke up Sunday morning, Dale, to see this headline. I didn't just the headline, didn't see any pictures. It said major Labour donor tells rich threatening to flee Britain if taxes rise to off. Now, without reading any more, I just thought, oh, what's Dale been saying now? I instinctively thought, well, this is a Dale story. Turns out to be true.
Yeah. Got my fingerprints all over it. It was an interview I did with the Daily Telegraph, and the full context was a conversation about rich people, business owners, and that kind of stuff, threatening to do a number of things. One is not to bother starting a business if business rates of tax go up, and threatening to flee the country. And there was a moment in the conversation at which I just got a little bit exasperated and said, look, if that's how they feel, if they don't want to pay their fair share of tax in, and they'll go abroad to avoid that, then they should off, right? Because I don't think we need them here. I don't think we want them here. And we certainly shouldn't pander to them by, changing tax rules to suit them, when actually the vast majority of people in our country don't have the option to go abroad to save some money that they don't really need anyway, because they've already got a lot of money. I find it irritating. I find it annoying, and so I reacted, and the headlines seem to travel rather well, I would say.
How's that house hunting going in Barbados still?
That's right. It's funny.
Here's a question from Francesco, who says November is World Vegan Month, and the first vegan society was set up in England 80 years ago this month. Will you, Forest Green Rovers, and your other vegan ventures be doing anything to celebrate and raise awareness? It's a good little factoid. It's 80 nice. Years this month. Who would have thought 80 years ago there were vegans?
Yeah, I mean, how can they still be alive right on that diet?
Because of that diet, maybe. But it's a fair question.
Oh, it's a good question. And I have been invited to dinner, funnily enough. It had to be dinner, didn't it? It's a vegan society, and, food's the topic. I'm invited to dinner somewhere, somewhen, to celebrate, which is nice. And I hope to go. But you remind me, I've started something of my own for November. I'm calling it NO-vember, capital N, capital O. And I'm turning everything down, all speaking opportunities, all kinds of stuff. And I'm just going to grab some time back to do some.
I like it. So this is like you're kind of capturing that kind of let's muck around with month names.
That's right.
In order to highlight a charity, and some of them are really quite strained. Let's be honest. But you're going November. Literally, you're not even changing the word; you're exploiting the word.
That's right. I'm just interpreting it differently. The answer is no, no. What's the question? And
Yeah.
I started today, actually. I couldn't wait. I had the idea last night and I thought, F it, I'm not going to wait till like 1st of November.
But we're
Do it
still doing
anyway.
the podcast.
Oh, yeah, we are, aren't we? Well, look at it. Well, it's fun. That's fun, right? I like to do
Yeah,
that.
indeed. Yeah, this is not work, right?
No, this is not work.
This doesn't come under the NO-vember.
Not at all. It doesn't.
Here's a question from Rod, who says, Dale, you seem to be very committed to the green energy future. That's a bright observation, Rod, who said, whilst this is both fashionable and profitable, the efficiencies and all-in costs that come with it are really very poor indeed. What do you make of that? Because you do hear people make that argument, and I don't think Rod is trying to be funny or clever. He's making what he believes is a genuine observation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if like the idea of it being fashionable and profitable, that's not why I do it. I've been doing it for 30 years, of course, long while before it's fashionable or profitable. But the idea of these efficiencies and all-in costs being poor indeed, I don't really understand that. The efficiency of renewable energy is fantastic. The costs are super low, which is why onshore we need no public money, and it's vastly cheaper than fossil fuels. Cheapest form of new energy we can make. That's a fact. So I don't understand, Rod, why you're saying that it's got problems with efficiency and value for money. Value for money. It just reminded me. We read in the press the other day that the government are creating a new post, like Commissioner for Value for Money or something like that. To look at government plans and stuff like that. They've appointed somebody to the job. I'm not sure who it is. Haven't heard of him, but we're like, surely it should be Martin Lewis. He's the value for money man. So we're starting a campaign. Come on, Martin.
Well, I don't take any financial advice seriously unless it comes from Martin Lewis, to be honest.
And on that subject, actually, in terms of value for money in the budget, Sizewell, right? £2.7 billion is being spent on Sizewell, and it won't build it. It's just to take it to the place where somebody could decide to waste, I don't know, tens of billions of pounds on getting it built. £2.7 billion, which is enough to end the two-child limit on benefits, and drag loads of kids out of food poverty. I think that was a terrible value for money decision, and we're going to actually write to the new value for money commissioner and say, hey, you need to look at this Sizewell decision. Oh, and the carbon capture and storage one as well, actually, while you're at it. Oh, and heat pumps. Have a look at heat pumps as well.
Get the heat pumps in. Mombiot will be discombobulating at the very word. Let's talk about greenwashing here, because there is a fairly high-profile case about greenwashing, something we've discussed many times before.
Yeah, I like this one. We've covered a few times, of course, the increasing amount of legal cases being brought against oil and gas companies, sometimes by federal governments in the US, sometimes by environment organizations, sometimes by single activists. This one is by a shareholder in an oil and gas company, and I think that's where it's at first. And he's gone to court. There's going to be a 13-day trial, and basically he's saying that Santos, this is the name of the oil and gas company, I'm particularly emphasizing the toss here, don't have a climate change plan that qualifies to be called a plan at all, but it's little more than a series of speculations cobbled together in a matter of weeks, end quotes. So I'm quite liking this one. Let's see where that goes.
Let's see where that goes. Here's a question from Rob. I know this might not be the best place, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. We'd love to get you to speak at our Decarbonising the NHS conference in 2025. How do we go about booking you or getting stuff on your radar other than sending stuff to the podcast email?
Well, if it's in November, I'm just going to say now I'm not going to do it.
It's a no from us.
I'll be following
2025 this is.
Well, I meant November in 2025. I mean,
yeah,
it could become an annual habit.
Yeah.
But look, we don't have a better route, actually, Rob, than to use the email for this podcast. And I'll get my team to make sure they go through it and pick up speaking requests and stuff like that, as well as questions for the podcast.
Here's a good news story, Dale. The value of clean tech is going to go through the flipping roof.
Yeah, it's a big sum of money. It's a report out this week by the IEA, the International Energy Agency. They say it's a first-of-a-kind analysis, and they looked at 6 mass-produced clean energy technologies, the sun, the wind, electric cars, batteries, electrolyzers, and heat pumps, funnily enough. And they say that the market for those will double in the next 10 years to reach an incredible £1.5 trillion, which is, shed load of money. Why is it important? I think I've said many times before in our conversations and in my book and stuff like that, when when the environment becomes something that people can make money from rather than have to put money into, it doesn't need support, but it's good economics, then we reach a tipping point. And a whole load of businesses will be piling into these sectors already and more, having read this report, saying, look, there's a future here. We can make money here. So let's do that. And, I'm not the biggest fan of capitalism or anything like that. But when these guys get pursuing the things we need to see happen, then, well, they're on the side of the angels.
Should we do some X-rated corner stuff, Dale?
Oh, I love that. Yes.
We like this feature.
Can we please?
Yeah, let's go for it.
I need a laugh.
Mark B says, for all the outrage over Mr. Murdoch, Mr. Musk, and Mr. Gates, their involvement in politics is transparent. We know who they are and where their wealth comes from. Dale Vince is a shadowy figure with the outside influence on UK Labour. Now it's in office. Why does he seek to hide his involvement?
This one's hard to understand, right?
Well, it is, considering the headline we began with was the story in one of Mr. Murdoch's newspapers, actually, that said Labour donor Dale Vince.
And I get to be in so many stories right now from the right-wing press. That's the gift to me. And everything they say starts with Labour donor. I mean, there's no secret about the fact. There's nothing shadowy about that. So it's hard to understand, really, what he's saying here, Mark.
Viv says, Vince, you, sir, are a paid propagandist. No such thing as climate change. So many real scientists say so piss off. There you go. Is there a reply to that? I don't know.
Well, I think, who's paying me? That's the first thing I want to ask. But I shouldn't humor the preposterous, bizarre notion that I'm just being paid to say this stuff. Yeah. And so many real scientists. I think it's 99.999% of scientists in the world that know anything about this stuff say climate change is real, it's man-made, and we have to do something about it.
Here's one, ironically, from somebody called Open to All Views, clearly apart from yours, Dale. Because this person says, amazing financial illiteracy from Vince, retained profits fund growth and help long-term security that employees need. Those that access the profits pay tax the same as any other person. Please do us a favor and read up on the basic economics before publishing absurd statements.
Well, look, I think this bloke needs to read up on the basics of a sentence, right? Because I can't make sense of that. Which part am I supposed to have said? That the first part, that retains profits fund growth and help long-term security? Or am I the second part, accessing profits and paying tax? Or is he saying my idea of a not-for-dividend company doesn't make any sense? If that's what you think, whatever your name is, Open to All Views, here's this for something to bear in mind. I started the company on a hilltop in a trailer 30 years ago with nothing, and now it employs 800 people and turns over 800 million pounds. And all of that was done on this new business model of not for dividend, keeping all of the money in the company and using it to pursue the mission. So if that doesn't work, I don't know what the does.
And funnily enough, we obviously here at Zerocarbonista now, we have a massive team of people that diligently research stuff. So we asked the team to try and excavate these sort of quotes of things you've apparently said to highlight your financial literacy. We can't find it anywhere. So I think this person just made this shit up.
Well, that happens, doesn't it? People make things up and then they attack you for it. A bit like George Monbiot.
And this one comes from the English witch, who says, it concerns me how much Dale Vince is pushing the tax narrative. How badly does he want the land for energy production? He regularly donates to Labour MPs as well as activist groups. It would suit him for farmers to be taxed into selling their land. Guilty or not guilty, Dale?
Yeah, absolutely not guilty. I mean, farmers do well when they rent their land for renewable energy projects. I mean, it's better for a project developer to rent it than buy it. It's far cheaper. Buying land just adds to the capital cost of a project incredibly. And, most developers don't want to use land, but farmers can continue to use it, particularly if it's a wind farm, because we use about 1% of any given land area for a windmill, and then 99% is available. So, I mean, it's just another one of them silly things, isn't it?
From the English witch.
From the English witch.
Silly witch.
Let me tell you this, in case it's good for the podcast before we wrap up. When I was standing on College Green yesterday, looking down the camera, listening to you talking to your guest before me, I thought you had Ed Miliband on the line, because you kept calling him Ed, and he had a voice just like Ed Miliband. And it was only until the final question, when he expressed sympathy for private landlords, I thought, well, that's not Ed Miliband. That can't be. And it turned out it was Ed somebody else.
It was Ed Mead.
Ed Mead, that was it. It made me
who
laugh. It made me
apparently
laugh
likes Ed Miliband.
so much that he impersonates him.
Yeah, clearly, yeah. He's like, I think there's a magistrate order against him
I thought, what a
for
coup!
trying to be Ed Miliband. I jest.
I thought, what a coup! You got Ed Miliband on his show.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? Listen, Dale, we're done, but we will speak next week.
All right. Yeah, as long as I allow it, right? Because this is November.
That's true. Yeah, you never know what could happen. Watch this space. Don't forget, of course, to follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince or x.com, whichever way you look at it, facebook.com/DaleVince, of course, and on TikTok too.
Fabulous.